Job. Chapter 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and this man was perfect and upright, and he feared God and turned away from evil. And 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. And his possessions were 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen and 500 female donkeys and a great many servants, and this man was greater than all the sons of the east. And his sons would go and hold feasts in each one's house, each on his own day, and they would send word and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And when the days of feasting ran their course, Job would send word and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all, for Job said, "Perhaps my children have sinned and have cursed God in their heart." Job did this continually. Then one day, when the sons of God came to present themselves before Jehovah, Satan also came among them. And Jehovah said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan answered Jehovah and said, "From roving the earth and going about in it." And Jehovah said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? For there is none like him on the earth, a perfect and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil." Then Satan answered Jehovah and said, "Does Job fear God without cause? Have you not set a hedge around him and his household and all that he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his possessions are spread throughout the land. But stretch forth your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." And Jehovah said to Satan, "Here is all that he has, in your hand, only do not stretch forth your hand against him." And Satan went forth from Jehovah's presence. Then one day, when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their firstborn brother, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing, and the donkeys were feeding beside them. And the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them away, and they struck the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to relate these things to you." While this one was still speaking, another came and said, "The fire of God has fallen from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and devoured them, and I alone have escaped to relate these things to you." While this one was still speaking, another came and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 companies and raided the camels and took them, and they struck the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to relate these things to you." While this one was still speaking, another came and said, "Your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their firstborn brother. And suddenly a great wind came from beyond the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house, so that it fell upon the young people and they died, and I alone have escaped to relate these things to you." Then Job rose up and tore his clothes and shaved his head and fell to the earth and worshipped. And he said, "Naked I came out of my mother's womb, and naked I will return there. Jehovah gives and Jehovah takes away, blessed be the name of Jehovah." In all this Job did not sin, nor did he charge God with unseemliness. Job. Chapter 2. Then one day, when the sons of God came to present themselves before Jehovah, Satan also came among them to present himself before Jehovah. And Jehovah said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan answered Jehovah and said, "From roving the earth and going about in it." And Jehovah said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? For there is none like him on the earth, a perfect and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil. And he still holds fast his integrity, though you have moved me against him to destroy him without cause." Then Satan answered Jehovah and said, "Skin for skin. Indeed all that a man has he will give for the sake of his life. But stretch forth your hand, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face." And Jehovah said to Satan, "Here he is, in your hand, only spare his life." And Satan went forth from Jehovah's presence and struck Job with severe boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took a potsherd with which to scrape himself, and he sat among the ashes. Then his wife said to him, "Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die." But he said to her, "You speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Should we receive the good from God but not receive the ill?" In all this Job did not sin with his lips. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this misfortune that came upon him, each came from his place, Eliphaz the Temanite and Bildad the Shuhite and Zophar the Naamathite, and they together made an appointment to come to console him and comfort him. And when they lifted up their eyes from a distance and did not recognize him, they lifted up their voice and wept, and they all tore their clothes and cast dust over their heads toward heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, but none spoke a word to him, for they saw that his pain was very great. Job. Chapter 3. After this Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job responded and said, "Let the day on which I was born perish, and the night which said, a man has been conceived. Let that day be darkness, let God not seek it from above, nor let light shine upon it. Let darkness and the shadow of death reclaim it, let a cloud dwell upon it, let the things that blacken the day terrify it. As for that night, let deep darkness take hold of it, let it not rejoice among the days of the year, let it not come up in the number of the months. Behold, let that night be barren, let no joyous shout come in it. Let those curse it who curse the day, who are ready to rouse Leviathan. Let its pre-dawn stars be dark, let it wait for light and there be none, and do not let it see the eyelids of the dawn. For it did not shut up the doors of the womb that bore me, nor did it hide trouble from my eyes. Why did I not die at birth, come forth from the womb and expire? Why did the knees receive me? And why the breasts, that I should suck? For now I would have lain down and been undisturbed, I would have slept, then I would have been at rest. With kings and counselors of the earth, who rebuilt ruins for themselves. Or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or like a miscarriage that has been concealed, I would not have been, like infants that do not see the light. There the wicked cease from their troubling, and there the weary rest. Captives are altogether at ease, they do not hear the voice of the taskmaster. The small and the great are there, and the servant is free from his master. Why does he give light to him who suffers and life to the bitter in soul? Who wait for death, but it is not there, and dig for it more than for hidden treasures. Who rejoice to the point of exultation and are glad when they have found the grave. To the man whose way is hidden and whom God has hedged in. For my sighing comes as my food, and my groaning pours out like water. For I dread something, and it comes upon me, and what I fear comes to me. I have no ease and I have no quiet and I have no rest, but trouble comes. Job. Chapter 4. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, If one attempts a word with you, will you be wearied by it? But who can refrain from speaking? Indeed, you have instructed many, and you have strengthened the weak hands. Your words have raised up him who was stumbling, and you have made the bowing knees firm. But now it comes to you, and you are wearied by it, it touches you, and you are disturbed. Is not your fear of God your confidence, and the integrity of your ways your hope? Remember now, who, being innocent, has ever perished? And where have the upright ever been cut off? According to what I have seen, those who plow iniquity and those who sow trouble reap the same. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they are consumed. The roaring of the lion and the sound of the fierce lion and the teeth of the young lions are broken. The strong lion perishes for lack of prey, and the whelps of the lioness are scattered. But a matter has stolen in unto me, and my ear has received a whisper of it. In perplexing thoughts of the night visions, when deep sleep falls upon men. Dread came upon me, and trembling, and caused all my bones to dread. And a spirit passed before my face, the hair of my flesh bristled. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance, a form stood before my eyes, I heard a murmur of a voice. Can a mortal man be more righteous than God? Can a man be purer than his Maker? If he puts no trust in his servants, and he charges his angels with error, how much more those who dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in dust, who are crushed like a moth. From morning to evening they are smashed to pieces, without any considering it, they continually perish. Should their tent cord be plucked up within them, they die, and not in wisdom. Job. Chapter 5. Call now. Is there anyone who will answer you? And to which of the holy ones will you turn? Surely vexation slays the fool, and jealousy kills the simpleton. I have seen the fool taking root, but suddenly I cursed his habitation. His children are far from safety, and they are crushed in the gate, and there is no one to deliver them. The hungry eat his harvest and even take it out from the thorns, and the thirsty pant after his wealth. For evil does not come forth from the dust, nor does trouble spring forth from the ground. But man is born unto trouble, just as sparks fly upward. But as for me, I would seek after God, and I would commit my cause to God. Who does great things that cannot be searched, wonderful deeds that cannot be numbered? Who gives rain upon the surface of the earth and sends water upon the surface of the fields? Who sets on high those who are lowly and puts those who mourn safely above all? He frustrates the devices of the crafty, so that their hands achieve no enterprise. He seizes the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the wily is brought to a sudden end. By day they encounter darkness, and at noon they grope about as in the night. But he saves the needy from the sword of their mouth, from the hand of the strong. Thus the poor have hope, and injustice stops her mouth. Indeed, blessed is the man whom God corrects, therefore do not reject the chastening of the Almighty. For he wounds, but he binds up, he strikes, but his hands heal. In 6 troubles he will deliver you, indeed in 7 no evil will touch you. In famine he will redeem you from death, and in battle, from the power of the sword. From the scourge of the tongue you will be hidden, and you will not be afraid of destruction when it comes. At destruction and at famine you will laugh, and you will not be afraid of the animals of the earth. For you will be in an alliance with the stones of the field, and the animals of the field will be at peace with you. And you will know that your tent is at peace, and you will inspect your fold and miss nothing. And you will know that your seed will be great, and your offspring like the grass of the earth. You will come to the grave at a ripe old age, like a shock of grain coming up in its season. This is it. We have searched it out, it is so. Hear then and know it for yourself.